My husband was photographed when he rear-ended someone with his lover. Robert rested one hand on the car window smiling at the paparazzi. If you've captured my scandal, remember to find my wife. She's the one who loves handling this kind of news the most. Whenever people in the circle mention me, Mrs. Lynn, they all speak in unison. A sparrow who turned into a phoenix, how could I possibly be willing to divorce? No one remembers that when Robert married me back then, he lowered his pride and said to them, "This is my wife. She's young, so please take care of her in the future." Everyone assumed I would do the same as before, throw money at the paparazzi, cover up this little tabloid scandal and continue being Robert's glamorous wife, putting on the act of a perfect couple. Yet this time, I only pushed open the old man's study door. It's been 3 years. You should let me go now. Chapter 1. There is an unspoken rule among Hong Kong newspapers. If any entertainment reporter fails to meet their monthly quota, they go squat outside Victory Group's President Lin. Every month, without fail, he changes mistresses. And he parades around so flamboyantly that it's effortless to get a shot. For men, a little scandal is considered normal. But for his wife, she must maintain dignity and a good reputation. If you caught her husband's affair, just bring it to her and name your price, she would pay it all without hesitation. But old tales fade, and situations renew. When a rookie paparazzo from the New Territories Daily brought the video to Robert Lin and was sent back to me, I had just returned home from the company. The villa sat high on Victoria Peak, with the entire Victoria Harbour's night view in sight at a glance. The voice from the phone kept playing on, clumsy yet bold in tone, demanding sky-high prices. "Mrs. Lin, just 2 million, it's only the price of a handbag for you. With just 2 million, you can buy off your husband's scandal. Isn't that a bargain? If you decide, call this number." This paparazzo wasn't very clever. After following once, the second time he blatantly knocked on Robert's car window. Robert's car was actually hard to recognize. He changed cars frequently, hundreds in the garage, yet those few days, he kept driving the same one. In the video the paparazzo sent me, Robert lowered the window. In the passenger seat sat a woman dressed provocatively. Last month, when I received photos, that seat was occupied by a trending starlet. Robert removed his sunglasses, revealing an almost flawless face, and crooked his finger toward the camera. As the paparazzo came closer, Robert coaxed him in a lazy tone. "New to this paparazzi game? So clueless. After you shoot, you should go find my wife. If you come to me, you won't get a dime. No contact info for my wife." He grabbed a piece of paper, scribbled down a few digits, and casually shoved it into the paparazzo's hand. Then, turning to the woman beside him, he clicked his tongue, "Get out." The woman leaned close, speaking coyly, "Mr. Lin, didn't you promise 3 days? It hasn't even been a few hours." Robert tossed her a card and pressed the unlock button. "Already caught on camera in just a few hours. If you don't get out, do you want me to kick you out? Get lost." I closed the video, my expression calm, and sat at the dining table where the servants placed dish after dish of dinner. The clock in the hall struck 8 and chimed a few times. Chapter 2. I lifted my head and looked at the gift Robert had brought me back from France 7 years ago. It swung there, worn and old. When I was 17, I applied to study at the University of Hong Kong. At 18, I met Robert. Back then, aside from his face, he was all understatement. Clearly capable of so much, yet he pretended to fumble clumsily, always saying he had forgotten everything he learned, blaming me for having to teach him. But in just half a month, people who knew him whispered to me, "You think he only has that handsome face? He's the young master of Victory Group, and his father is running for office." Later, Robert left campus but never listened to advice. Every day he drove back and forth between the University of Hong Kong and Central. During those years, we sometimes quarreled, but we kept falling in love again and again. My heart opened and closed, closed and opened. At 25, after endless entanglements and countless trials, I married Robert. That grand wedding of the century is still preserved in newspaper records. One tabloid, competing for attention, published a headline louder than the major newspapers. It was sensational, but utterly disrespectful. The next morning Robert saw it at breakfast. After reading, he pressed his glass down on the paper. Later I learned that pompous headline became the very last issue that tabloid ever published. One trivial matter after another, when I retrace them all, I realize, Robert and I once loved each other in that way. Yet in the end, how did it all turn into this old clock swaying without strength? In the silence of the hall, the elevator digits flickered. When it stopped at the third floor, the doors opened. Robert stepped out, his suit jacket draped over one arm. Even under the elevator's overhead light, his features remained sharp and flawless. I glanced once, then withdrew my gaze, focusing on the dishes before me. A minute later, I heard the sound of clothes tossed onto the sofa. Next came the sudden engulfing of cologne and his body's heat. Robert stood behind me, both hands braced on the table, as if enclosing me in his arms. His voice was careless. "Good evening, Mrs. Lynn. Let me see, how much is this scandal worth this time?" He placed the phone on the table, tapped a few times, and pulled up a message. 2 million. These reporters' appetites are smaller than your dinner. People might think my net worth has depreciated. I set down my chopsticks, my back straight, always keeping half a fist's distance between us. I didn't respond to his words. Instead, I shifted the subject. I don't agree with Amanda parachuting into the position of PR director. I'll reject her application. As expected, the moment that name was spoken, Robert straightened, and the suffocating aura around me vanished instantly. He sat across the table, hands draped over the chair back, his eyes cast toward the night beyond the window. "Her matters don't require your concern." Then Robert's gaze returned, chin resting as he looked at me. "You can't stand her." I stared straight into his eyes, searching for something, but found nothing. Outsiders only knew Robert had been endlessly switching mistresses these past 2 years. No one knew he was covering for Amanda. 2 years ago, Robert had sent her abroad to polish her resume. Now, he wanted to install her directly into the group. It wasn't that I couldn't stand her, it was simply the facts. Victory Group's hiring standards were ruthless, first-tier degrees only from the world's top 30 universities. Amanda had only a high school diploma, worked in a department store at 18, and the overseas prestigious school she attended was nothing but a diploma mill. No matter how flexible the rules, she couldn't pass. My voice was quiet. "I'm talking business with you. I'm not mixing in personal feelings." Robert didn't reply. After a pause, I heard a voice from his phone. Sugary, coy, dripping with seduction. "Mr. Lynn, I left my little panties in your car. When's a good time for me to come pick them up?" The voice was played on speaker, deliberately turned up, echoing in my ears. Robert looked at me, phone to his lips, his tone lazy. "You sent this to the wrong person, miss." I gazed at his cold, indifferent expression, struggling to recall the way he once looked when he loved me. Chapter 3. In the beginning, Robert still used to confess and repent. The gifts he had sent Amanda were far too extravagant, unintentionally taking up the quota I had originally set aside. The rich circle was too small, just a trace could uncover a towering scandal. Robert drove straight home, handing over every single password to his phone, bank cards, and accounts. "She just helped me a little. The gift was chosen by Ajin. I'll punish him later." He explained just a little, and I believed him. There was no reason not to. But that day, somehow word spread that Robert Lynn and I had a huge fight. Amanda, on a rainy day, knelt at the villa gate. "Mrs. Lynn, there's really nothing between Mr. Lynn and me. You must believe us." The more she tried to cover it up, the guiltier it seemed. Anger burns away clarity. So I didn't see, that day, when Robert stood by the floor-to-ceiling window looking down, a flicker of heartache flashed in his eyes. When a man feels heartache for a woman, between two people it may be the start of romance. But among three, it becomes danger. But none of that mattered anymore, the hardest days had long passed. If I wasn't mistaken, today was November 27th, only a few days left before the 3-year deadline between me and the old master. I looked at Robert, about to speak. But he suddenly received a call. The voice on the other end leaked faintly through. I recognized Amanda's voice. "The power's out at my place." It's pitch dark. I'm a little scared. Wait for me. I'll come. Robert stood up, glanced at me once. I swallowed the words on my lips and said nothing. He left without looking back. After Robert left, I drove to the Lin family's old residence. The Lin estate was a century-old mansion, decorated with a mix of Chinese and Western styles, half antique, half modern. When I entered, Robert's mother was seated on the sofa, a servant massaging her shoulders. Hearing the sound, she turned her head to glance at me, then closed her eyes again. I didn't provoke her disdain and went straight upstairs to the study. Grandfather, I weighed my words carefully, 3 years are up. I want to leave the Lin family. Back then, I had known Robert only pretended to send Amanda away, he was actually sending her abroad to study. Even when I was hospitalized, his flights were still between Hong Kong and Australia. That was when I gave up completely. I approached the old master then, at a time when the Lin family was unstable inside and out. He asked me to stay 3 more years. If Robert remained incorrigible, by then he would allow me to leave the Lin family. The Grandmaster's chair rocked slightly. The old man opened his eyes and looked at me. I thought giving you 3 years would make you used to this. Why do you still want to leave? When I didn't answer, he sighed. When you chose to marry into the Lin family, you should have expected all this. Look at Sandra, when she was young, her temper was fiercer than yours. But in the end, didn't she still hold tightly to the title of Mrs. Lin? With so many illegitimate children, none of them could stir the waves. The son she bore, Robert, is still the Lin family's only heir today. Sandra was Robert's mother. This woman, now devoted to prayer and vegetarianism, once had extraordinary courage and power. Do you know what she relied on? On my recognition. As long as I recognize it, no one can take your place as Mrs. Lin. With my support, those women pose no threat to you. Moreover, I'm not here to talk about feelings with you, I'm here to talk about a deal. These past few years you've performed outstandingly. Be it the company or the Lin family, you've held everything up on your shoulders. For the Lin family to cultivate another person would take both time and effort. If you leave the Lin family, whether it's worth it or not, you can calculate that clearly. If we set aside emotions and speak only of transactions, this is without a doubt the most profitable trade. I poured him tea, speaking softly, you know, if it weren't for feelings, I wouldn't still be sitting here today. I had also thought about it before, if I held tightly to the title of the legal wife, no matter what, outsiders could never force their way into the Lin family. But I didn't marry Robert in order to become Mrs. Lin. I became Mrs. Lin because I married Robert. Back then, I even tried to push him away, saying his marriage wouldn't be free, that he had no business dating me. Robert frowned, how am I not free? If I want to marry you, I can think of countless ways. You don't see me for a whole day and you're ready to marry someone else, what do you take me for, a useless man? I didn't believe him. What brilliant idea could possibly overcome so many obstacles? Later, he didn't bring it up again. Step by step, he took over Victory Group, slowly moving into the Lin family's core. And after graduation, I too entered Victory Group, starting from the bottom as an intern. Back then, I trained during the day at work, and at night Robert tutored me privately. My growth was rapid. When marriage was brought up again, he was already firmly seated in the Lin family, no one dared to object. Only, out of respect for the old master, he came up with a plan the next day to make the old man face reality. Brat, did you really think I was senile and muddle-headed back then? Didn't know what was going on? Some entertainment company had found a pretty boy with powdered face and greasy hair, holding your hand, talking about registering for marriage. You thought I was scared? I turned a blind eye, gave my blessing, and you still weren't satisfied. Now only a few years later, you're making noise about divorce. His words were clear, if you leave the Lin family, I will not let you come back. Think carefully before you decide. I lowered my head, memories flashing past like a moving lantern, those fleeting 7 years of marriage. Leaving the Lin family, this was something I had already waited 3 years for. He waved his hand, finish handling what's in front of you. When the time comes, someone will contact you. When I came downstairs, Robert's mother was still seated on the sofa. At the doorway, I turned back. From now on, it won't be convenient for me to offer my greetings. I hope your health remains peaceful. After speaking, I turned and walked out. The lights in the Lynn residence's living room were dim. Sandra sat shrouded in the shadows, her head lifted as she stared ahead. It seemed all the light in the room followed that swiftly departing figure out the door. She watched, and it was as if she saw the younger Sandra herself walking out. The person next to her bent down close to her ear. "Miss, it's late. Time to rest." The living room fell into darkness again. Sandra withdrew her gaze. "Let's go." Chapter 4. When I got into the car, I remembered I needed to finish what was at hand. Overnight, I told the paparazzo to come in the morning to collect a check, to buy out all of Robert's scandals from today. The next time I heard from Robert was a few days later. After Amanda returned, he restrained himself a little more. Thinking of the deal with the old master, I had the driver make a turn to pick Robert up. When we arrived, the door was open, and inside a group of people were playing cards. Among them was Amanda. She had just won a round, and the man sitting opposite praised her. "Sister-in-law, luck is really on your side tonight. You've been slaughtering us all evening. I might as well throw even my underwear on the table. Be kind and spare us." Amanda pressed her lips into a smile, just about to speak. Robert looked up and saw me at the doorway. He took a drag of his cigarette and cursed, "The woman standing at the door is your real sister-in-law. Are you blind, mistaking someone else? No wonder you haven't been able to win all night." The man saw me, panicked, and quickly stood up. Sister-in-law." Amanda, on the other hand, turned pale. Seeing the scene, I knew at once that Robert had done it on purpose. He always did this, deliberately making me see. Everything he did was to push me toward divorcing him, giving up my position. Yet he himself refused to divorce. His reason was simple: she's young and ignorant. Keeping her around for fun is fine. But who would actually marry her? For a wife, having you as Mrs. Lynn is enough. I swept my gaze around the room, left the driver behind with instructions to see Robert home later, then gave a polite nod and turned to leave. Just as I reached the door, Amanda blocked my way. 2 years ago she was just an 18-year-old girl. Now, only 20, still raw yet vivid. She was breathing lightly, her voice thin and soft. "Mrs. Lynn, I'm sorry. I never meant to destroy your family. I tried to leave, I tried to forget, but I couldn't. I can't forget Mr. Lynn. I love him deeply. But please believe me, I truly never intended to ruin your family. Between Mr. Lynn and me, we just met too late. If he had met me first, I would have been Mrs. Lynn." Her face flushed. "I don't mean it like that. I just sincerely want to apologize. If there's a next life, I'll repay you as a beast of burden. But in this life, I can't give Mr. Lynn back to you. I'm sorry." I looked her up and down. 2 years ago, she could only afford clothes that cost $30 or $50. Now, every inch of her was covered in understated luxury. The pair of shoes on her feet alone could pay for 3 years of her old department store wages. There are always sparrows. Before, it was me. Now, it's Amanda. I didn't open my mouth. I disdained to even speak to her. I would never try to rouse a mistress with words of morality and conscience. If she truly knew how to write the word morality, she wouldn't be so jubilant about being someone's kept woman. "You should divorce Mr. Lynn." Her voice chased me from behind. "Let him go." Inside the room, the others glanced at one another nervously. One of them dared to look at Robert's frosty expression. "Robert, aren't you going after your wife? When a woman gets angry, she might file for divorce." Robert stared at the photo of the $2 million check in his hand. No one knew what he was thinking. After a long silence, he finally laughed. "Wouldn't divorce be better? Nothing to tie me down." Chapter 5. Rosie wanting a divorce was something Robert Lynn was the very last person in the Lynn family to know. When he heard the news, he lifted his eyelids and looked at the messenger. "What kind of joke is this?" Ginny exaggerated. "What joke? Grandpa already agreed to it." Besides, haven't you been stirring up chaos in the family these past 2 years just for the sake of divorce? If you ask me, then divorce is divorce. Men always end up disliking their aging wives. She leaned over the table, eyes glinting mischievously, and whispered, "Sis is still waiting for you, you know. After so many years, she hasn't married. If you get divorced, give her a chance, HM?" Jenny had always believed deep down that her cousin's wife should be her sister. Who would have thought Rosie would appear out of nowhere back then? On Robert's wedding day, Jenny ground her teeth in fury yet was forced to smile while handing over a fat red envelope. Pitiful, really. From that day on, she turned grief and anger into motivation, rejected every man, and became a career-obsessed woman. Robert rubbed his temples in annoyance and told her to get out. Jenny snatched up her bag and click-clacked her heels toward the door. Just as she stepped outside, she ran into Amanda. Perhaps Amanda had overheard their conversation just now, because there was still a trace of a smile tugging at her lips that she hadn't yet hidden. Jenny folded her arms, smiling slyly, wow, grinning so wide like a man eating flour. "You planning to eat children? Know your place. Even if Rosie divorces 18 times, the title of Mrs. Lynn would never fall to you." Amanda's expression didn't change. Her tone was calm. "Then who would it fall to? Your sister? She looks even less qualified." Jenny clapped mockingly, as expected of a mistress. "Your face is as thick as a city wall. You're not even worthy to carry my sister's shoes." Amanda watched her leave, her gaze deep and steady. Robert had sent her abroad to study, bought her a house, and given her a high society life. For her, he was even divorcing Rosie. Back then it was Rosie. Now it was her. If Rosie could sit in the position of Mrs. Lynn, why couldn't she? 2 years ago, she had knelt on Victoria Peak, staring at the luxurious villa before her. At that time, she had thought, "One day, this villa's doors will open for me." Chapter 6. After the old master gave his consent, I never got the chance to discuss the divorce with Robert. I knew he had already heard the news. I thought he would come to me immediately to negotiate. But many days passed, and he stayed in Macau for a long while. Even in the worst-case scenario, the law provided a safeguard. If a couple lived separately for 2 years, either party could unilaterally file for divorce without the other's consent. But I knew, neither Robert nor the Lynn family would ever let things come to that. If he were willing to nod his head right away, the divorce could be settled in an instant. So I waited. That day, he finally pushed open the villa door again. Pleasantries were unnecessary. He went straight to the point. "After the divorce, you won't get a penny." Acting on impulse. Back then, before the wedding, the old master had only one demand, a prenuptial agreement. If the marriage ever fell apart, I wouldn't take a cent with me. Robert refused, but the old man also refused to back down. He didn't trust Robert and absolutely would not let Victory Group's massive wealth be entangled with his personal feelings. In the end, Robert compromised. He set up a trust fund for me with his personal money. The trust was registered as my premarital personal property. It contained cash, stocks, shares, and real estate. Over the years, through growth and appreciation, its current value had reached nearly $8 billion. Though $8 billion was nothing compared to Victory Group and the Lynn family's colossal fortune, back then it was all the liquid cash Robert could gather after fierce struggles. At the time, I didn't want it. But he had smiled and told me, more than a man, money is a woman's greatest security. He gave me an inappropriate example: "Maybe I'll betray you, but money never will." From closest to coldest, that is marriage. No matter how deeply in love we once were, it didn't stop us now from glaring with hostility, crossing swords. I stared at him for a long while, thinking of Rosie from those early days, like a madwoman. In the beginning, my obsessive need for purity took over, and I cursed him with the vilest words. I wished him dead, wished him run over and crushed into pieces the next day. Why should he shatter my faith in love entirely, yet still get to live so freely? In my deepest despair, I once drove headlong, wanting us both to die together, to go to hell so we wouldn't suffer every day. But in my moments of clarity, I had only one thought. Fortunately, we had no children. Fortunately, that child never came. I looked at him, my voice calm now after all the fights were exhausted. You should thank me. From now on, you won't need to sneak around when you're with women. With a click, he lit a cigarette, and through the smoke he looked at me. True. I'll thank you on Amanda's behalf, for making room for her. Truly generous of you. I ignored his biting sarcasm. The time is 3 days from now. I hope. He picked up his coat and walked out. As you wish. At the doorway, he paused, turned back to look at me. Rosie, don't regret it. But if you do regret it, beg me, I'll always soften. After all, we are husband and wife. No one can surpass you. Chapter 7. On the day of court, Robert didn't show up. An hour later, I received the divorce decree and drove back to the villa. But since the group had important matters at hand, the news of the divorce would be suppressed for the time being. When I returned home, there was an uninvited guest sitting in the living room. I frowned and called the security guard. He explained, she has Mr. Lynn's access card. Amanda sat up straight, chin raised as she looked at me. I came to get the piece of enamel jewelry Mr. Lynn bought last time. He said he would give it to me. You've just been hoarding it. She stroked the leather sofa beneath her hand. He promised it to me, but you're keeping it from me. This villa was under my name. On the day I decided on divorce, I had already thrown out all of Robert's belongings. Those valuable things wouldn't have been discarded, likely they were sent to the place in Repulse Bay. I didn't waste words with her. Get out. Rosie. She no longer called me Mrs. Lynn. We're both women, I know exactly what you're thinking. You dragged out this divorce for years, unwilling to let go. Now suddenly you file for it, obviously it's just a trick to make your husband come crawling back. Playing hard to get doesn't fool anyone. I tilted my head and called, Auntie Lou. Moments later, a figure came upstairs from below. I glanced at her, and her eyes lit up. She threw aside the rag in her hand and lunged forward, grabbing Amanda and dragging her out. You lunatic. Amanda screamed. Auntie Lou and Auntie Ma were both long-serving retainers of the Lynn family, brought in by Robert's mother from her maiden home. Auntie Ma was steady and shrewd, Auntie Lou excelled in force. They were his mother's right and left hands. Back when Robert's mother dealt with mistresses, it was Auntie Lou's hands that clawed open the faces of countless interlopers. After I entered the Lynn family, Robert's mother assigned her to me. Unfortunately, I was too disinclined to make a fuss. She had little use these years. But today, I let her revive a bit of her old glory. Outside came Auntie Lou's sharp, booming curses, you wretched bitch. Barely grown and already desperate for men. Even when Hong Kong's mistress industry was at its peak, no shameless side chick ever dared to show up at the door. Raised with no father, no manners. Her Mandarin limited her fury, so she switched into Cantonese, every word razor-edged. One day, I should let her scold Robert like this. Amanda had gained some popularity online, carefully crafting her image. In her posts, she was a poor girl from the bottom rung who had caught the eye of a powerful wealthy man by chance. That man loved her tenderly, he was her benefactor, her lover, guiding her upward step by step. Unknowing netizens envied her, sister, you must be so exceptional to be loved like this. She accepted every compliment graciously, he shows me the world, teaches me the ways of people. So that even if this doesn't last, I can still live happily. She wove a fairy tale of a prince and a pauper girl, as if she truly were the heroine of a romance story. Chapter 8. When I came to Hong Kong at 18, I longed for a wide future, hoping to put down roots here. But after more than a decade of twists and turns, I think, I'm starting to miss home. After handling everything, I set out back to my hometown, Shucheng. Back then, it wasn't just the Lin family who opposed the marriage, my parents were unwilling too. It was Robert, through every season, flying in and out, landing and taking off again and again, begging them to entrust their daughter to him. After visiting my parents, I paved my path toward Shanghai. If a person doesn't move, the mind withers. With both my education and my experience, I could never allow the rest of my life to be wasted. In those first years within the Lin family, I couldn't even hold a wine glass properly at banquets. Back then, Robert stood behind me, his presence heavy enough that no one dared laugh at me. But I myself refused to be anyone's shadow. Later, I could navigate the wealthy wives' circles with ease. In the early stages of founding my company in Shanghai, I made no effort to hide that I borrowed the Lin family's and Robert's name to gain momentum and resolve many issues. I lacked neither funds nor connections. Within just a month, I had ironed out all the details. Besides work, I also busied myself with myself. I had to admit, even though that marriage had been rotten to the core. After the divorce, I still suffered emotional backlash. Sometimes I woke in the middle of the night, feeling suspended, hollow inside, unable to land. During the 7 years of marriage, in the last 3, I was little more than an empty shell. Now, I want to fill that shell piece by piece, both the void inside and the blank spaces in life. I began tirelessly remaking myself, reading, traveling, socializing, becoming more like who I once was. Once a person finds the strength to lift herself upward, the thorns of the past become mere ornaments. That day, the phone on my desk suddenly rang. I answered, and on the other end came a familiar accent. "Madam, it's me, I'm Marco's secretary." His speech was quick. "Sir is drunk and insisted I call you to ask which hangover medicine he should take. He said if he takes the wrong one, it could kill him." On the line, faint muttering, "Tell her to come back." I glanced at the number, Marco secretary. "Ah. Madam," he continued, "oh right, sir wants you to return to Hong Kong. When will you come back?" My face expressionless, I said. "I've been so busy, I actually forgot about you, Marco's secretary." What? Before Marco's secretary could respond, he looked down at the phone. He could no longer get through. Madam had blocked and deleted him. He held the phone in silence, thoughtful. Sir had been the first person Madam ever blocked. He was the last. Sir had been the head of the chicken. He, the tail feathers. But wasn't that in its own way still a kind of honor? Chapter 9. A few days later, strange parcels began arriving at my company one after another. Opening them, each item inside was worth a fortune: a Harry Winston diamond necklace, an Hermès lizardskin Birkin bag, and plenty of other luxury jewelry. This method of apology, I had seen it often before. Back then, he would send gifts as a gesture, I would accept them as a step down, and both of us could pretend to be happy. Now, using this trick only felt distasteful. I checked the company's accounts, then turned around and sold the lot, converting them into funds. After 10 days of this, Robert appeared. At an investor's banquet, he arrived uninvited, standing like a door god. Everyone rose to greet him. The glances darted between me and Robert, but no one dared mention divorce outright. Victory Group's public divorce announcement had already been picked up by mainland news outlets several times. Not long ago, I'd heard Mrs. Sue gossip plenty about the mainland side of things. No one had expected that what was supposed to be framed as an amicable divorce by the Lin family would be thrown into chaos by a meddling little upstart. Amanda, upon hearing of the divorce, had rushed online to post photos with Robert. Though in the pictures only half of Robert's back was visible, blurred and censored, sharp-eyed netizens still deciphered it. Like injecting chicken blood, online sleuths divided tasks and analyzed over 1,000 of Amanda's posts, linking timelines and spreading them wildly. She created alternate accounts to clap back, but was soon dragged through the mud. She wrote, "He doesn't love his wife. If she can't keep his heart, who's to blame?" Someone replied, "So hilarious, he doesn't love his wife, but you think he loves you, you homewrecker? That necklace you flaunted in March was just a leftover from the piece his wife wore at last year's anniversary. Because where the money is, that's where the love is, or so people believed." Last year, Robert had donated a $30 million golden Buddha to TSC Shan Monastery in his wife's name. The clamor online never ceased, until I grew too weary to listen anymore. As for Robert, divorce and cheating seemed to have no effect on him. If anything, because of Amanda's online feuds, the word cheating had become a mark of his charm, painted as some roguish allure. Meanwhile, Amanda, equally guilty, had long been torn to shreds. Robert, on the other hand, could stand there now, smiling as if nothing had happened. Footsteps trailed me at a steady pace. I stopped. "Say your purpose directly." I don't have time to circle around with you. He set down his wine glass, speaking unhurriedly. You don't know how the media praises you. They say you're bold and unyielding. Everyone knows the Lin family produced a woman of iron spirit. They exalt you, and by comparison, they drag me through the dirt. The day you left, Auntie Lou cursed me out from the third floor for half an hour straight. I thought, well, after all this, a divorce, a walkout, so many people venting your anger for you, you should be appeased by now. So, I've come to take you back. Hearing this, I realized I was angry. But facing him, my soul felt numb. I had wagered everything for a decisive exit. Yet to him, it was only a tantrum. As long as I cooled down, it would be as though nothing had ever happened. In that moment, I suddenly understood. All these years, between me and Robert, whether in love or marriage, perhaps, from beginning to end, only I had ever treated it as faith, as everything. So the destruction and collapse sweeping from start to finish had only ever consumed me alone. Robert, too, had made vows before a pastor. But perhaps he had never once believed that love meant steadfastness, or that marriage meant fidelity. Having figured it all out, I turned quickly, lifting my hand to wipe away the tears that refused to be contained. Robert, divorce means this: for the rest of our lives, we have no more connection. You may treat divorce as a game, but I have never treated marriage as a tantrum. I tell you this, I do not regret it. Not now. Not ever. Never. He grabbed me, as if my rage were nothing but air, and said helplessly, fine, then let me be the one to regret. I spoke too soon. These 2 months without you, I'm not used to it. I could bear it no longer. My hand shot up and slapped him hard across the face. The crisp crack echoed down the tree-lined path. Robert's face tilted to the side. He raised his fingers to touch the sting. Was that enough to cool your anger? If not, hit me again. When your anger's gone, come back to Hong Kong with me. Chapter 10. Who knew what madness possessed Robert, haunting me like a ghost, refusing to let go. Every few days he flew to Shanghai. He no longer sought out mistresses, no longer doted on his lover. It was as if, without me, he and his mistresses had lost all passion. Even cheating had become tasteless. I didn't care about him. During my break, I set off on my planned trip to Inner Mongolia. Tired of the bustle of luxury, tired of the daily overload of information, one needs nature to cleanse the soul. I chose a yurt. There was wind, light, grasslands, lakes, and the slow passage of time. To my surprise, on this trip, I ran into Jenny. Clearly, she hadn't expected it either. After crossing paths for 2 days, she finally couldn't resist greeting me, albeit awkwardly. Her first words, however, were hardly pleasant. You look much better now that you've divorced my cousin. Shaded by my straw hat, my voice came low and flat. Not chasing after your sister anymore? She plopped down beside me, half resentful, half excited. Do you know, my sister doesn't even like men? She has a girlfriend, and she hid it from me. For years I thought I was the ugly duckling, believing she liked my cousin. Who knew it was all just me being self-deluded? Once her chatterbox opened, news poured out nonstop. For the next 2 days, Jenny followed me everywhere. I thought she was acting as Robert's lobbyist. But when I asked, she waved me off. You underestimate me. If he can't win you back, that's his failure. I'm not getting involved. Yet only a few days later, Robert again showed up in Mongolia like a lingering spirit. Right in front of Jenny, I had no courtesy left. I cursed him out and turned away. Jenny patted his shoulder and called, cousin. Robert withdrew his gaze, forcing patience. What is it? If you're sick, see a doctor, she said pitifully, instead of coming to Mongolia to stare at cows. Chapter 11. I had no intention of keeping my lower body tied up for the rest of my life, and whenever work pressure grew too heavy, I found myself wanting the company of pretty young men. Taylor was a newcomer in the entertainment company I invested in. He was obedient and beautiful, so I made an exception and kept him by my side. When news spread that I was dating, Robert flew to Shanghai overnight. His expression was calm as he made a simple remark, powdered face, slick tongue. Then he flew back to Hong Kong. Taylor, unfazed, leaned against my shoulder, innocent as a child, he said I was good-looking and sweet-tongued. But isn't that exactly what you like about me, sis? Robert thought himself clear-eyed while everyone else was foolish. You're wasting your brain. A 20-year-old boy is only after your money and resources. Do you really think it's true love? How could I explain to him that was the best thing? I had too little true affection left. Love had disappeared. I had nothing but money. Now, I was glad men would talk money and resources with me, better that than talking about love. The next time Robert flew to Shanghai, he saw the man standing at my side. This time his brows knit slightly. Changed already? Taylor had many good qualities, but honesty wasn't one of them. At first, I thought him a clean slate, poor and pitiful, entering showbiz with no background. Supporting him felt justified. But then, by chance, I learned the Su family's name carried weight in Shanghai. He was a spoiled rich boy, playing at the red light scene, taking me for a fool. How could I stomach that? The day I sentenced him, he looked utterly wronged, drenched like a wet dog. If I had told you I was rich, you wouldn't have even looked at me. But that wasn't the point. Whatever the reason, meeting someone shouldn't begin with lies. Compared to his agitation and grief, I was calm, as if I'd just lost an insignificant investment project. There were too many handsome, obedient men. If one fell, thousands more would rise. I nodded toward Robert, generous. The last one was disobedient. This time I changed to one who listens. We could speak so calmly, as if divorce and collapse belonged to a previous lifetime. Robert's brows relaxed slightly. His expression remained even as he commented, "Pretty boy, looks nice but useless." It was a look of certainty, as if to say, "Rosie, go ahead and play. You don't really mean it. After what I've put you through, you'd never truly settle for these scraps." This relationship lasted longer than most. So long that Robert prodded me more than once, "Why haven't you broken up yet?" Still with that same certainty, that superiority, as though in his eyes, my love affairs were nothing more than tantrums, amusements to pass the time. I snapped, "Are you sick?" He replied shamelessly, without a shred of guilt, "Yes. Lovesickness." I ignored his moods. An ex-husband haunting his former wife, it was laughable if said out loud. Sometimes he called deep into the night, disturbing my sleep, asking again and again, "When are you coming back to Hong Kong?" Perhaps the night makes people's hearts softer. His midnight apologies sounded a bit more sincere. Unlike in daylight, when he was all arrogance. A few times his voice even trembled, word by word, "Rosie, I regret it." But come morning, he pretended nothing had happened. Now and then, I received calls from his mother. Her tone was indifferent. "Robert's hurt. Will you come to Hong Kong to see him?" Before I could reply, she added on her own, "Doesn't matter if you don't. He won't die." I no longer cared about his life. Mine had already returned to its path. The company kept growing. I had trusted friends and beloved companions. No longer did I lie awake in the night, restless and uncertain. For a long time after, Robert and I maintained a strange balance. If he wanted to fly to Shanghai, or return to Hong Kong, it was his choice. I never interfered. I knew what he was waiting for. Waiting for the day I woke up, turned back, and boarded his cursed ship again. But Robert, no one steps twice into the same wrong road. Chapter 12. After the annual meeting, Robert drove straight to the old family estate. He walked into the hall. The lighting was as dim as ever, like a damp place untouched by sunlight for years. He had never much liked the old house. He preferred the villa they had lived in after marriage. After Rosie sold it, he bought it back again, but no matter what, he could never find the feeling of the past. For 2 years, he had traveled endlessly between Shanghai and Hong Kong, shamelessly hovering over Rosie. She was too free. At times she would vanish without a trace, impossible to find even if he scoured the world. Rosie had been under his wing since she was 18. Back then, she was obedient, her big eyes earnest and affectionate. Even when she threw a tantrum, she was easy to coax. Sometimes she didn't even need coaxing, she persuaded herself, clinging to his waist, giving a fierce yet utterly powerless warning. "If it happens again, I won't forgive you so quickly." He had never known Rosie was truly a free wind. These past 2 years, she had shunned him like venom, yet often remembered to send greetings to his mother on holidays. When he couldn't find Rosie, he went to Sandra. He slouched on the sofa, head lowered, idly playing with a string of prayer beads. Sandra had polished them beautifully over the years. He didn't believe in gods or Buddhas, but held the beads like a toy. If Sandra saw, she would surely frown at him in disapproval. Since Rosie left, she often looked at him that way. But this time, Sandra sat down without a word. Only, a wedding invitation fell onto the table. It wasn't the Hong Kong style, the cover shone garish red, almost glowing, unbearably tacky. Robert's eyes skimmed over it, and he decided to use it as an opening. Whose wedding invitation? So grand. Sandra glanced at him, surprised. Rosie's. She's getting married. You didn't know? Robert froze, reaching down to touch the thin slip of paper. For half a day he didn't open it, leaving its contents in darkness. Sandra watched his expression and understood. Calmly, she drew the invitation from his hand. I see. You weren't invited. As she pulled it away, a corner flipped open, Rosie's name glinted before his eyes. Sandra walked toward the stairs. Auntie Ma supported her as they climbed. From the second-floor landing, looking down. Robert still hadn't moved, trapped in half-light, half-shadow. Auntie Ma couldn't help feeling pity. Why let things reach this point? You don't know. Just the other day he told me Rosie was kinder to him. He said, Auntie Ma, Rosie still cares for me. Such a grown man, grinning like a child. Sandra withdrew her gaze, speaking faintly, you waste your pity. Rosie's far away on the mainland. Don't you know by now? While she was in love, did he really sit idle, living like a widower? Robert stayed still so long his limbs grew numb. He had thought there was an unspoken bond between him and Rosie, that no matter how fierce their quarrels, no one else could enter her heart. So when they divorced, he didn't see it as a big deal. Don't people in this world break up and reconcile all the time? So when she dated other men, he looked down on them with arrogance. Those men, he thought, were just her diversions. Once bored, she would return to him. In the end, divorce or remarriage, it would always be him and Rosie, bound for life. He had believed he would possess her forever. Yet in this moment, he tasted forever's loss. Rosie, at some point, had walked out of their ruined love and marriage, leaving him trapped in the delusion that she still loved him. How could she allow love to happen again? How could she let someone else erase her fear of marriage, give her the courage to begin anew? The wedding invitation still gleamed on the table, but it drifted farther from him. As if announcing Rosie's happiness, mocking his disgrace. He began to hate her a little, hatred born of love, gnawing with fear. Such hatred scorched his heart and lungs, impossible to resent, impossible to let go. For the rest of his life, it would give him no peace.